Welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello guys, hello everybody, welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. And first of all, I can't find myself dancing to that intro every time the show comes on now, Chris. Is that because it's inbred in my mind? First thing to say, we had a show on Friday that was absolutely wonderful with the massive Ian Rankin. And if you haven't seen that, please go and check it out. It's had some great feedback and we were absolutely buzzing after that show and indeed hungover. As dry January, I survived not to drink for 28 days and then a few beers that night. It really put me in a bad way yesterday. So I'm probably going to spend another 28 days not drinking again. I'm just going to put it out there. We'll see. Maybe 2 or 3. So, Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good. It's nice to be here in the morning with a coffee, a bit of a change of scene.
Got coffee? Yeah. Excellent. So we've got a great guest on today, and very similarly to a book we had on a few weeks ago, a debut book that has caused a huge commotion. And it's something that every debut author, wants to do and trying to achieve. But to have two come along very quickly, there it is, called Shiver. But we'll get into that soon. It's incredible, and we're very excited to. And is on the chat. No, it's not Irish coffee. We're very excited to get into how this came around and what the inspirations were. Of course, if you've watched the show, you'll know what's going to come ahead of this. So first of all, let's get the beer token book promotion done. And today, that is by someone on Twitter who is Lelita Baldock. It's a tricky one for me. Yeah. So at Baldock Lelita, see what you've done there. Her book is called The Unsound Sister, and it sounds fantastic. It's got 4.7 out of 5 ratings after 5 ratings, and it's available on paperback and as Kindle. And it says, "Are you responsible for a crime you can't remember? Who really killed Grant Huxley?" So, are you responsible for a crime you can't remember? Grant Huxley is dead, found brutally stabbed in his hotel room. His estranged wife, Eloise, and sister June are discovered at their home, covered in blood and in possession of a pair of bloody crafting scissors. Wow. So, D.S. Robert Fields interviews the sisters, having, despite no memory of the events surrounding the murder of her husband, Eloise is convicted. Ooh. And it unfolds there. Sounds fantastic. So please do check that out, and thank you for sponsoring the show with a beer, aka coffee, this morning. Thank you very much. It's up there. See, it's a nice cover as well. It's actually quite interesting because it's got a red thing with water running down, and I can't work out if that's something to do with the story or it's like a jacket. It makes you want to look at it a few times, so well done. Cool. So let's get on with tonight's guest. Excited, Chris?
This morning's guest.
Oh, well, unless you're in Australia. And if you're in Australia, hello to you. If you are in Australia, let us know in the chat because this is a first for us and it's very interesting. So, without further ado, the author of, as we just mentioned there, Shiver, former snowboarder. This is ALLIE Richards. I was going to say Ellie, sorry. ALLIE Richards.
Not Richard, Reynolds, mate.
Oh, my God.
Right. It's early morning.
You need to drink more coffee.
I was just staring at that and I'd written something to read out as an introduction and I couldn't read it and then I messed the name up. So fantastic. Good morning to you.
Thanks for getting up early. I really appreciate it.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. I'm really good. I'm hot. It's like midsummer here. It's like 30 degrees. I am sweating, literally.
We were just discussing this before we came on air, and it's cold. It's a cold morning in the UK, and then you've got a heat wave out in Australia, so we're kind of jealous a bit. But and we were mentioning the fact that noise in the background, if you can hear that, guys, is parrots. Like our parrots.
Tropical kind of birds and parrots. It's really loud, isn't it? Or maybe crickets as well now. I can hear that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is like
old mix of animals there.
This is like a trip to the wilderness for us. Fantastic. Yeah. We just don't have anything that's kind of exotic in the UK apart from like house spiders, and they're just kind of rubbish as well. Oh, can't complain. So your book Shiver is just come out now in January, and it is a debut book from you, but it has, again, like we just mentioned, caused quite a commotion in the world of publishing. So what we want to do is jump back in time a little bit and find out where the inspirations for writing came from for you. Is there a particular story or something that was sort of a driving force behind you wanted to write in the first place?
Yeah, I guess just I've always really loved writing. I've always been a massive reader. I've always loved books. My first ever job was in a bookstore when I was 14. It was a Saturday job that just continued for all my teen years. And I spent nearly all my salary on books.
Nice.
So at one point I owned almost every single Agatha Christie. And I said to the owner, I want to write a book one day. And he just looked at me and laughed. But it took a long time. But yeah.
That's an interesting response for someone who works with books. Just to laugh, have a little giggle. So it was.
So does everybody. Like he sort of didn't think that I had much hope. I don't think. But
is he still around now? Did you send a copy of your book to him?
I wanted to know. Apparently, one of the book bloggers that reviewed Twitter lives in Lincoln, my hometown, and she said she would try to track him down.
Yes, certainly do that. Send him one. Send him a nice signed book. There's one thing to mention about your books as well. I'll jump ahead here. The cover you've got behind you, is that a hardback one?
This one is the UK hardback. Yes.
Okay, because there's a different one on Amazon.
They are a lot of different. It looks kind of the same, doesn't it?
No. Okay, let me try and find that. I'll
pull
that up.
There was there's the US one, the Australian one. I've got the German one. There was a special advance proof of a UK one that came out a year ago, and it's got a chairlift. An empty chairlift seat. Was that the one you're thinking?
No, I think it might be that Australia one, the blue one. Is that?
That's the American.
Right, that's it then. Okay.
Yeah,
I noticed there were two covers, and I was just trying to wonder why there was two covers, but that's explained that. So, Shiver, I'm guessing as someone, if you don't know, ALLIE was a snowboarder. Was that a professional job for you?
Well, at the time, it was very much in the early years of snowboarding. So I had product sponsors, and I funded myself by juggling about 3 or 4 jobs every summer and then saving up. And I don't think there was any money in snowboarding at the time. It was a long time ago. So I think even the very top people were probably still doing part-time jobs. Yeah.
Wow. And it's a lot more mainstream now, especially with the Olympics and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, so that is obviously a big influence in this story. For those who are watching that might not know of this story, can you just give us a little insight as to what it is?
Yeah, sure. So Shiver begins as 5 former friends are invited to an isolated mountaintop reunion. 10 years ago, they were snowboarders training and competing in the tiny French ski resort. Now it is the off season, so they gather at the cable car to go up to the reunion venue. And as they go up, there's confusion over who invited them. And when they reach the top, the ski lodge there is dark and deserted. An icebreaker game has been laid out for them. The game reveals some of their darkest secrets and suggests that one of them is a killer, but there's no easy way down. The cable car's no longer running. So if they want to get off the mountain alive, you've got to figure out who to trust and what really happened that winter 10 years ago.
Fantastic. Sounds very good. So your influence, your experience as a snowboarder obviously helped you feed into that story, and sort of the research side of it was almost already there for you then.
That's right, yeah. I even back when I was snowboarding, which is more than 20 years ago now, I was keeping a journal, and I just was obsessed with this icy white world. It's unlike anywhere else, and I just wanted to set a novel there because it didn't seem like we've seen that world, you know? It's the world about jumping off things, where you're living for adrenaline and just risk-taking, and I thought it would be a good world to set a thriller in. So I did spend years and years trying to get a novel written there, a different snowy novel, and then abandoned it in about 2018, and then suddenly got the idea for Shiver, and that just came really smoothly. I didn't have to do hardly any research. I'm writing my next book now, and the research is shocking. So I'm realizing how lucky I was with Shiver, because I could sort of remember most of it.
Yeah, there's some good feedback coming in about that story idea on the chat. So hello to you guys.
Yeah, I was going to mention just about that. So you've mentioned your history and your love of Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
Did you find that came naturally when you were writing Shiver? And when you thought about writing a book, was that always the avenue that you wanted to go down?
It wasn't always, because over the sort of 20 years or so that I was attempting novels, I think it just depended on what I liked reading at the time. So it might have been chick lit back then, like romance, and then this thriller sort of vibe worked in when I got really hooked on reading thrillers, maybe like 8 years or so ago.
Wow.
And yeah, Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None is just probably one of my favorite ever novels. I just love that concept of inviting people to a remote place under false pretenses and then trapping them there. So I thought I would give it a bit of a snowy twist.
Yeah.
And yeah, trap my snowboarders on a glacier and have a similar sort of storyline playing out.
Are you worried about any? Sorry, Chris. Are you worried about any comparisons that are going to come out between, obviously, your real life history of being a snowboarder, going to remote places and competitions, to the plotline of Shiver?
Well, I think I've had a few interviews already, and in every single interview, they've asked me, "So, oh wow, like snowboarders are a really cutthroat bunch, aren't they?" And I feel a bit bad because, luckily, in my experience, they were not like that at all. They were the nicest bunch of people ever. So, but as a former athlete, I'm very interested in other, like, much better athletes, like top athletes in other sports. So I got looking at sports psychology and just got really fascinated in it. Like, for example, it's thought that winning is as much as 90% a game of the mind. So there's so many stories about top athletes getting to the top by the mind games and the intimidation tactics that they use to get a psychological edge on their rivals. And yeah, I thought we'll take that to an extreme sports environment and see what happens.
There's a lot of visualization used with the pro athletes, isn't there?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
To see their sort of the winning before they've done it, so they can almost follow the steps. So it's an interesting theory, definitely is. So as you mentioned that you were writing, and this came into sort of a thriller genre, and you mentioned that previously you could have done sort of romance or something like that. Is there now scope for you to expand into those genres, or do you want to kind of focus now on what you've got and build on that?
I will definitely. I've got a contract for 2 books, so I'm writing my next thriller now, and I think I love writing thrillers. I love the pace and especially the twists. So I think I might well try to continue that for a few more books. But I do love reading romance as well as thrillers, and Shiver has got a romance subplot. So I do fancy at some point in the future maybe having a go at a rom-com, because that's a genre I really love. I don't know if I would be able to do it. Maybe I would want to kill people off. I'm not sure.
You can combine the both, right?
We'll see.
So did you find that your experience of being a snowboarder and an athlete helped you in terms of when you sat down to actually write, in terms of the level of commitment involved in both practices?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, you might not think that snowboarding and writing have anything in common at all. But yeah, very much. I think the discipline and the focus, and also the getting smashed, basically, because for 5 years I got smashed. I fell on ice. I broke stuff. You know, you're in a lot of pain, and you just pick yourself up and try harder, basically. And it's a bit like that with writing. Before I got a publishing deal, I was writing a lot of short stories for women's magazines, and you get rejection after rejection for them. And you have to just keep picking yourself up and try harder and just get very determined. The other thing I think it helped with was trying to be aware of me and how I perform best. So for me, that's like not drinking at all and like looking after my sleep. Because your mind is your greatest tool as a writer. So it sounds boring, but yeah, I sleep with earplugs, blackout curtains. I watch my coffee intake, and I don't think I could write without doing those things.
Wow. So when you're talking about the short stories and entering these and having rejections, is that something you would still advise people to do despite the sort of knockback effect it has?
I think the short stories were a brilliant training ground. I was writing for women's magazines over quite a range of genres. So it would be ghost stories, romance, thriller, humorous stories, twists. They love twists in women's magazine fiction. So I learned so much from having a go at all those genres. It also taught me to write in a very kind of lean way, because I was having to write whole stories with word count as small as maybe 500 words sometimes, almost like flash fiction. Yeah. So I would write a story and then I would have to trim it to fit the word count, and you just cut word after word. And so it was really good for editing skills. I got so much practice of editing because I was doing it for hours and hours, just for years. I would say now it's a much harder market. Like when I started off writing for the women's magazines, there were quite a few more publications available. And now I think, sadly, so many magazines have ceased to take fiction, and also quite a few have liquidated. So it would be very, very hard for anybody starting out if they want to make an income from it. But I think it's still a great learning experience.
It's got to have had a massive effect, all the digital world now, on things like magazines, isn't it? And I guess they're still working in a digital world, but it's not often people go looking for a digital magazine. It used to be the case of walking in a I don't know, a shopping centre or whatever, and you see them and want to pick them up. And I just don't think that's a massive thing anymore.
I think it's selling less, and the money you can make from them. If someone wants to make a living as a freelance writer, it would be really tough, I imagine.
Yeah. So,
go on, Chris.
So looking back at when you started writing Shiver, and you'd obviously done all the short stories, and you were, okay, this is my focus, this is what I'm going to write. Did you have any idea or a plan for it to go where it's gone and be picked up and sort of driven by so many publishing houses at the point of auction?
No, you could never imagine it. I mean, I think every writer dreams of their novel ending up in an auction. It's something that you read about occasionally. And by auction, I kind of imagine 3 or 4 publishers. That might be what an auction consists of. But yes, certainly I was writing all these different attempts at novels, and I was kind of thinking, I must be dreaming to imagine I could ever get anything published. And people around me were also, I think they thought I must have been dreaming, because I kept on trying, and I couldn't even finish writing a novel, let alone, find a publishing deal. I didn't even get to the stage of submitting any of them because they were not good enough. But then, when I started Shiver, it was kind of a feeling like I'm going to give it one last try. I'm absolutely going to go for it and give it everything. I stopped. I cut out everything else. I cut out watching TV. I didn't do sport. I hardly saw friends. So I just sort of tried and thought I'd see what happened. And I just got incredibly lucky. I still can't believe it. I feel like I must be dreaming still.
There's probably a lot of our listeners and viewers that are watching right now that could take huge inspiration from you, not just because obviously the success that you're having, but you also have
children
as well. They're quite young. So how do you manage to juggle that writing and being a parent as well?
It's very tricky. I wrote on and off before I had kids as a hobby when I had a lot more free time. I was an English teacher for 15 years. So I would kind of write short stories for magazines on the side, and I started to get a few published. When I had my kids and they were very young, I think I took a few years off writing completely because I was just absolutely brain dead. I didn't have any brain power in order to write. I think when my youngest turned 2, I figured, right, I'm going to start drinking an extra coffee every day. And that actually got me over a sort of bump, and I managed to start writing again. And then I lost 3 teaching jobs from having to call in sick when my kids were sick. And I eventually thought, wow, there's going to be no, institute that will have me. I was a casual worker. And I thought, I was already getting some success with the short stories. So I switched, I quit the teaching, and I thought I'll focus on the short stories, see if I can make a part-time income from that. So in a way, having the kids helped me because it forced me into that situation that ended up having a silver lining. Now I'm a single mom, so yeah, it is pretty hard to juggle the kids, but each time they get older, it gets a little bit easier. Work around them, you can work evening and mornings, but certainly if you're on lockdown like you are now in the UK, like that must be unimaginably tough for people, because we had a lockdown earlier in the year in Australia, and I know that I did not write a single thing during those months.
Yeah.
It is very distracting, and it's weird to think that you said it earlier on in the year, whereas I think we just are still in it. I'm not sure that, there hasn't been a sort of window without it for quite a while. So, and it's very distracting, and a lot of people have said to us that they haven't had the concentration to read or to write, and some people have gone the other way, but it's very, very tough. So what is your writing process like? Are you a pantser or are you a plotter? How does that work for you?
So for 20 years I was a pantser, and I think I finally worked out that's probably why I never finished the story, because they would always get in a mess with storylines. They didn't really have a proper story arc or any structure. And I finally thought, right, I'm going to try and plan my next book. So I read every book on writing that I could get my hands on and really studied it and kind of took the bits from it that I liked. And spent a whole month planning Shiver. I planned out the scenes on Post-it notes and put them on a giant whiteboard in 2 different colours, because I've got a dual timeline. There were about 80 Post-it notes. There's about 80 scenes. And I spent ages just shuffling them around, trying to get the right order, because that was really important. I don't think I could have written Shiver without doing that, because I needed to know what information was revealed at each time. And I wanted to end on cliffhangers each time, so that we would switch back to the other timeline and still want to know what happens. So I spent 1 month planning it, and then about 6 months to write most of it.
Wow. Was that quite overwhelming when you were looking at all the Post-its on the whiteboard? You thought, wow, this is a novel, I've got it, it's there, but now I've just got to actually write it. Like, how was that experience?
It was awesome, because when I sat down to write, I would know what I was writing. I would know where the scene would start and then how it would end. So you just know exactly what you've got to write. Whereas without it, you're kind of driving in the dark, sort of, with no map, and you don't know where you're going to end up. You might take a wrong turning and then have to go all the way back, and you've wasted whatever you wrote.
Wow.
So as someone that yourself mentioned that when you started writing, there wasn't that much belief in that you would get this, not just this book, but other things published and that sort of thing. So what was your reaction like from your friends and family when this book has had such success already?
Yeah, they're just like amazed. That my friends have just been cheering me on. I've lost my dad, unfortunately, but my mom is a very keen mountaineer, and all of her friends are mountain people. So she's just been giving my book to all her friends, and they just, they're all really excited about it. So it's just amazing.
I love the idea of them leaving copies of your book at the top of mountains in little cabins.
That is so nice.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
It's a bit heavy to carry up the mountain, really.
Yeah.
There's a few comments in the chat. Ross says, I now pants, then plan, then pants again. So
okay.
I guess that's one way to do it. I do like what you said, how you can, it's almost like a really decent outline of all the key scenes and then just fill in the blanks. So that's a good way of writing if you're getting into it.
It did change though, because as I got maybe 3/4 of the way in, new ideas and new twists came up that I wanted to incorporate. And then when I found an agent, there were certain bits she didn't like, and then new bits that she needed, she felt. So then I had to write 12 more scenes. But again, that really helped, having them all on the whiteboard, because I knew where to slot them in.
What was your thought? Sorry, Chris. Your thought process at that point where you thought there might be 1 or 2 tweaks, and they said you need 12 more scenes?
Well, I figured I need 12 more scenes. It was more she thought we needed this and this and this.
Okay.
So a lot of it for that was the romance plot was in danger of overwhelming the thriller plot. So she made me slash big chunks of romance, which was exactly the right thing to do. and she thought we needed to up the thriller plot at different points, which again, it had to be done. And then when I finished that revision, she said, I think it needs another twist. So again, I had to go back to the drawing board, but I'm extremely grateful that she could, look at the big picture of my story. It's incredible to have somebody do that, and I'm very grateful.
So how did you go about getting an agent? How was that whole process for you in terms of, we have a lot of people who are watching for the first time that may be going through that process themselves.
Yeah.
And they're always interested to hear how people obviously got to that point.
Yeah, sure. I think I'd read about it a lot before, about the difficulty of getting an agent. I'd even heard it said that it's harder to get an agent than a publisher even. That's what some people were saying. So I did a course that really helped me with that. It was with Curtis Brown Creative. It was their short online course called Edit and Pitch. So it's run by a literary agency, and it showed us how to do a query letter and a synopsis and how to sort of edit up your opening chapters. So that really helped. And after the course, the people on the course kind of swapped contact details, and we did beta reading for each other. And that was really helpful. I went through the slush pile in the end. So, I just found agents that looked suitable and, edited it like crazy and sent it off. If anyone wants to read particularly my journey on hunting for an agent, it's on my website. I've got a post about it where I went into quite a lot of detail about the query letter, and I've put my query letter on there in case it's useful for anybody. So
fantastic. There's a lot of people saying they love that agent.
Kate
that agent sounds awesome.
Kate Burke at Blake Friedman. Yes, she is amazing.
Yeah,
she
definitely.
is Will Dean's agent and Leah Middleton's agent as well.
You also had a lot of feedback and reviews from people in the writing game in the genres as well. CL Taylor, she's been on the show before, left you a really good review. How did that feel as well, having reviews from people that were established in that genre?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, when you see the reviews come in, many of them are authors that I have read and admired and loved since even before I started writing Shiver. So it's just, it doesn't seem real. Yeah.
Chris, writing community questions. Let's get them in there.
Yeah, we do. We have a few staple questions that we like to ask on the show. One of them is, if you could take a character from fiction and make it your own and have a crack at it, which character would you choose and why?
How do you mean have a crack at it?
I mean, like
in Australia than like UK.
Yeah.
Do you mean write a book with them? Or,
yeah. So you could do whatever you want with that character. You could put them in one of your.
That's kind of got a bit of a different.
Oh, right, okay.
I can imagine what that means in Australia, and it's all right. This is the Friday night show. It's all right. It's
I really love the girl with the dragon tattoo, the heroine in that. I'm trying to remember her name, but she's just an amazing heroine. Like, she's damaged, really strong, and really kind of twisted up as well. So she's just such a memorable character. I love her.
So if there was a fictional character you'd like to have a crack at, who would that be?
Teddy Sparks in my book. Yeah, he's my ideal book boyfriend, I think.
There you go.
One of the main characters in my book.
Excellent. Right, so if there was a book and you could change the ending, adapt it to however you want, what would you choose?
Oh, wow. The first thing that comes into my head is the Hunger Games. So I really loved the love triangle that was going on in the Hunger Games. But I don't know if it was just me, but I wanted Katniss to end up with the other guy, the guy that she really liked. So I actually wanted a happy ending with that one, like romantic ending. Maybe that's just the romance in me. So
yeah.
And this question's a little bit morbid, but you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your writing career. What does success look like to you? What will you be happy with?
So I have already more than exceeded what I could have imagined or dreamed. Yeah. So I'm just yeah, I'm incredible. I feel incredibly lucky.
Wow.
This actually has been optioned as well already.
Yeah, I've saw the TV option. That happened very early on, like right after I saw the book rights, and I'm hoping very much that will go into production. I'm very excited about that. It's been optioned for a 6 to 8 part TV series.
That's amazing. If you could have any character to play your main characters, who would you choose? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about this. So I very much admire a lot of pro snowboarders, obviously, and there's 2 British female Olympic snowboarders that I massively admire, Katie Ormerod and Amy Fuller. And I think they would be so awesome playing the parts of characters in my novel. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Wow.
And is there any idea when that could happen?
I think it's a slow process, TV or film. I've been warned that from the start, and also especially with COVID. It's hard to say.
Excellent. Right.
I've got a new question, Chris. I thought of it today. Because I was reading a book and I got a little bit peeved off by the book. So I was wondering if there's any pet peeves that you have as a reader reading books.
Maybe one peeve I have a little bit in crime and fiction sometimes is if we often see women as victims or as quite weak. So yeah, that's something I definitely, obviously as a woman, I don't like to see that much. It annoys me, and I really love books with strong female characters where, they're just as strong as the men, if not more so, because they can be devious as well. So yeah.
Excellent. Right, a little segment now called The New Family Member, and this is when someone's followed us on Twitter and they may have quite a low following. So we give them a shout out and we send them GIFs, GIFs, gifts. Because I'm saying that because on Friday Ian Rankin thought I said gifts, and then he's given away a weird beer mat to someone as a result of the confusion.
Yeah, but he was looking around his house for something he could send. It was hilarious, but it was really awkward at the same time.
Gifts, okay? The confusion's gone. So yeah, we're gonna when we play this little trailer, have a think about something we can send them, and I imagine it could be snowboarding or anything you want to send, and then we will find out who this person is and send them a GIF.
Awesome.
So today's new family member is Sarah Fox at @Sar_writes. She is a writer, a reader, a crime fiction fan,
awesome.
a creative reading at Bath Spa Uni. Okay, MA. What does MA mean? Is that a teacher?
Masters in creative writing.
Okay. Retired nurse and health visitor. So fantastic. Well done to you. And she's got 83 followers. And Chris, so you can identify on her Twitter banner, she's actually got a book of Ian Rankins on there as well, which is fantastic.
Awesome. I'm going to write it down, sorry.
Yeah, that's it. So if you're watching or listening to this, please jump on Twitter if you are on Twitter and send @Sar_writes a GIF of what we're going for, Ali.
Yep, snowboarders, please.
Yes, snowboarders. We've had some really, really random things in the past, honestly, some bizarre ones. So while people are doing that, is there an author that you can recommend, that's someone that you read and really into?
It's so hard saying just one. I love Lee Child, but I'm going to say Erica Forensic.
Okay.
She is a US author because she's not as well known as Lee Child. I really love her thrillers because they're always set in really dangerous environments. She wrote The River at Night, which is about 4 women on a whitewater rafting trip down a remote Maine river. And then her second one was Into the Jungle, and it's this woman goes into the Bolivian Amazon, and the setting is just incredibly dangerous and original, and just a really strong sense of place. I love it.
There's a Bear Grylls book I've got somewhere, and it's a collection of short, true, real life short stories of survival.
Yeah.
And a woman, I can't remember the specifics, but she was in a light aircraft that crashed over a jungle. and she was in full-on office wear, as in high heels, skirt, and all that stuff. And she ended up walking for weeks on end with bare feet, with her shoes in her hand, basically, through the jungle, the rivers, all of this wilderness, and managed to survive it.
Yeah.
I'll have to try and find it, but that is an incredible story.
And that's true, right?
True story. Yeah, true story.
Because I read a thriller like that by Jessica Barry called Freefall. But yeah, I don't think that's a true story.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So, you've mentioned that you're working on book 2. Can you say anything about that at this moment in time, or even just like how it's going, or the plot and stuff?
Sure. So it's another thriller, a similar kind of feel, I hope. A small cast of characters. It's got a very different setting. It's set on a remote Australian beach. So we've gone from the snow and the ice to the heat and the ocean. And yeah, I've already gone past my deadline twice, partly as a result of the lockdown that we had earlier. And yeah, I'm about a third of the way through now. Yeah, so I've got it all planned out, but it might change obviously as I write.
Yes. So you changed your snowboard for a surfboard, and the stories follow suit as well.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
In a way, it's similar but different. Yeah.
So what is surfing in Australia like? Because I imagine it's kind of insane compared to what you probably did in the UK.
I didn't surf until I was about 28, so I picked it up later in life. I only really discovered it after I quit snowboarding. And I quit snowboarding aged about 27 because I just kept breaking stuff, and it's very much a young person sport if you do the freestyle and half pipe. So I got a bit sick of breaking stuff and hurting myself. And 2 close friends broke their necks, and were told they would never walk again. So it was kind of, I wasn't prepared to take, risks much more. So I switched to surfing, and I thought to start with, wow, I can't hurt myself at all. You're falling on water. But I've since smashed myself up a lot worse than from snowboarding.
Yeah.
I've had quite bad injuries lately. It's really crowded. I'm surfing in one of the busiest, spots in the world. It's extremely addictive. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing. So imagine this. I couldn't imagine surfing on somewhere with a reputation like that when there's an expectation to be good. Because if you're obviously not good, you're going to injure yourself, and you're taking up space that, professional surfers are using as well. Is there that sort of culture vibe there?
Well, it's hard to get waves at all, because you look around and the people next to you might be Mick Fanning or Kelly Slater. Like literally, I've been in the water next to them thinking, why are they all so good? And every Aussie kid that grows up on the beach, they learn to surf from when they are, really, really young.
Yeah.
And I think that helps because I just find it the hardest sport ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing it about 18 years now, and I am still rubbish.
It is really, really tough. But I can only imagine, like surfing with Kelly Slater. I mean, you've ticked another box there, haven't you? It's fantastic. So we've got a few questions in from the chat, and if you haven't sent one in, you're more than welcome to do so now. Okay, let's have a look. What's the most difficult thing about writing characters from the opposite sex? From Vince.
Oh, God, that is a really hard question. Because you don't really know how accurately or how well you're writing them until somebody of the opposite sex points out that you either are or you're not. And nobody's complained so far. So, I don't really know. I just hear their voices in my head.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm basing it on people that I've known well or combinations of people that I've known. Yeah.
Okay. Anders says, how long did it take to write Shiver? From start to finish, have you got a time?
Yeah, about 6 months.
Okay.
So that was a first draft, but I edit obsessively as I go along. So by the time I finished the first draft, I edited bits hundreds or thousands of times. And I did about a month or 2 more editing. So it was about 8 months from when I started writing until when I submitted it to agents.
For someone who's a prolific editor, do you look at your book now and think you wish you changed stuff?
The editing on Shiver was amazing. Like there was so much revision done. When I first submitted it to my agent, it was about 75,000 words.
Yeah.
And after my agent had helped me go through 2 rounds of revisions, I think it was then about 85,000. And then when my 2 amazing editors at my UK and my US publisher had finished several rounds of revisions, I think it stands at about 95,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's so much editing. I haven't really seen much. I try not to look now because I read through it so many times over and over. I just don't want to see any more mistakes.
You mentioned like you picked up loads of books and any books on writing and stuff that you could. Is there one in particular that you would recommend to people that are watching now?
Yeah, I actually thought you might ask that. So I've got a few books here that I really like. So we talked about editing, and these are my favorite 2 for editing. So it's The First 5 Pages by Noah Lukeman and Self-Editing for Fiction Writers by Brown and King. And they are really amazing books on editing if you haven't read them before. When I first read those 2, I think I cut about 20% clean off my project that I was working on at the time. I just got really ruthless, and there was all these bits I realized I didn't need. One book on actual writing that just, blew my mind is this one. It's called The Emotional Craft of Fiction by Donald Maas, who is a Yes literary agent. And that was just, an incredible book for me because it talks about how the books that we really love are the books that have an emotional impact on us. And we want to experience the things with the characters in the book.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit about using the senses, about trying to put the person in the scene, trying to make them relate to experiences that they've already had. So it was quite different from any other book I'd read on writing. I love Truby as well. John Truby, his book Anatomy of Story, that's great for structure and planning a book, I find.
Wow, that's really good advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really interested. I've got another blog post on my website where I've sort of gone into my top 10 books on writing, and I've sort of inspired them a bit.
We'll share that with the links to the show as well, because I did have a quick look, and it's a very good website.
Oh, thanks.
This question: how many agents did ALLIE contact until one took her on?
Yeah. So I did. I submitted to 4 or 5 agents in one batch and got straight rejections, without any feedback at all. And then I edited like crazy, and I submitted to another batch of 4 agents, and I got interest from all of those. They all asked for fulls. So
okay, that's interesting then. So once this has happened, how does an auction come around, and how are you notified about that?
Sure. So my agent, I think she'd already been sort of mentioning this book while we were going through the revisions to a couple of publishers, and then she submitted it, and we got the first offer back the next day. But she advised me not to take it because there was already interest from other publishers.
Yeah.
So she set it up, and the auction lasted for nearly 2 weeks. It went to several rounds, and at the end, she presented, the different publishers that were still in, and kind of talked through them with me about what they could offer. And then she advised, or kind of let me choose from that, which one to go with.
And how did you make that decision? Was it purely based on what they could offer in terms of for your book and, advertising and, their previous experience? Or did you have a sort of different process in mind? Because obviously they're all bidding for your book, so you all know that they want you. What sort of factors play into your mind at that point?
So I guess it's partly how much they would offer, but also you look at, say, the other writers in their list and how much, exposure they could offer you. Would you kind of get lost in their list because they've already got a huge list of, best-selling crime or thriller writers? You might sort of not get any marketing, for example. So, I mainly just listen to my agent's advice.
Right. Wow.
It's a very interesting process, and I can only imagine being in your shoes at that point. But it's almost like being contracted, like for a football team, or for a movie or something. Pick your contract. It's like, wow, what position to be in.
And it was all like late night or early morning phone calls. I had a phone call with the US, a publisher that was interested, and I think it was like 10 or 11 at night. And then I think I had my agent rang me early the next morning, about 7 in the morning, with an offer. So yeah, it was really exciting times.
Especially being dragging on for 2 weeks. I bet your mind was kind of playing, what's going on, and like
it's
nervous
hard
and
to sleep.
I bet 2 weeks of no sleep. Oh, it's like what Chris is going through now.
Really?
Yeah, I've got I've got a 3-week-old baby, so
oh no,
yeah, pretty much no sleep at the moment.
Yeah, I meant the lack of sleep, not a book auction, unfortunately.
yeah, definitely.
You talked about being tough with editing. When you sit in front of your manuscript, what are you looking to chop?
Yeah, so the books that I mentioned, they've sort of got topics in order of priority, what kind of things to look at. So, for example, this book talks about show, not tell. Is there any things you're looking at, where you're just telling and it's boring? It might be, for example, the dialogue. Have you figured the dialogue right? Often for me, it was one sentence that meant roughly the same as the next sentence, in which case you could cut one of those sentences. Or it was maybe 2 adjectives with a noun, and maybe you could cut one of those adjectives or even cut both of them. It might be adverbs with a verb, in which case you could cut the adverb and maybe find a better verb. So yeah, just being ruthless, I found helped a lot with that second batch of submissions.
Do you use any? Sorry, go on.
So I was going to say, with your history of being a teacher, and obviously the success you're having now, would you ever think of maybe offering a course to sort of people who are interested in learning the trade from somebody who's been there and done it?
I would totally love to do that. Yeah, definitely. My local library used to do workshops with different writers where your public could attend for free and learn about what this writing process was. And obviously with COVID, we can't do that right now, but I would absolutely love to at some point in the future. Or offer courses or workshops. Yeah.
So when it comes to your editing, do you, as someone who's experienced with, your teaching and stuff like that, do you edit just on a document, or do you use sort of writing softwares as well?
So I don't use any writing software. I'm a total technophobe. So usually I edit on the screen, but then often you get to a point where you're nearly there and you need to print it out. And then usually you can go for it with the red pen, I find. I just edit obsessively. So my first draft is really, really awful. It just seems to be how I work. And until I've edited it hundreds of times, I can't get it anywhere near how I want it to be.
That's amazing. Is there any foods you miss from the UK being out in Australia?
Oh, we had a Marmite. There was sold out of Marmite for nearly all of the COVID period. I think we weren't getting shipments. So here we've got Vegemite, but I've not eaten Vegemite and I never will.
Is that out of principle, or is it massively different?
It's got sugar in. It just tastes different. No. So I was really happy when we got Marmite in, and also some of the English chocolates I really miss.
Any specifics?
I love Revels. We occasionally get them here. Oh, Thorntons. Yeah, they have Thorntons. That would be amazing.
To send you a package out. But it'll melt though, right? It'll melt by the time it gets there.
Yeah.
We'll have one more question, then we'll do some more. We'll do a couple of silly ones to finish off after that. What are your common traps for aspiring writers?
Oh, wow. I think maybe most people don't edit enough. Just from talking to my agent, I think she was impressed that it was already, fairly well edited, and it left me feeling that maybe most people have not edited that much. Maybe there's typos, and they maybe haven't even read it through afterwards. I would guess maybe they're impatient to send it out. Oh,
Yeah, it does
yeah.
happen, and some people are not really in a position to sort of use finances to get those professional edits done, and maybe not as
Yeah.
thorough. So there are levels of that, and my advice would be, if you are getting into this and you're new, I have released the second book to my first, and it is improved massively. But obviously that was a rushing process, like you mentioned. So if I'd taken my time to get the first as good as the second, it would be a much better book. So just take your time. That's the only advice I've got in that position. If you can't afford the payments for proofreaders and editors, really take your time, slow it down, and just learn online and get help, because you don't have to rush it through.
Yeah.
Visit Allie's blog and get all the books that she's mentioned.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. So let's have a couple of questions to finish off that may be a bit off topic. Star Wars or Star Trek? Which do you prefer?
Star Wars.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the topic of Star Wars, let's have this is my favorite question of these random ones, Chris. Who is a better villain, Kylo Ren or Darth Maul?
Is Darth Maul is the original Darth Vader, or
no? He's the weird red thing that Chris. How do you explain him?
I'll go to the first one then, not the weird red thing.
The Beatles or Elvis?
Elvis, yeah. I had a
Ooh.
total crush on Elvis, and when I found out he was actually dead, I cried.
We often get Beatles, and that's not often we get an Elvis first.
Yeah, I had another music one, Chris. Prince or Michael Jackson?
Ooh.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, my two little boys love Michael Jackson. They're always doing like the dance. So yeah.
Which one? Thriller?
Yeah, the what is that? The moonwalking one as well. Yeah,
it's an iconic one, isn't it? What else we got, Chris? I don't know. Random ones, forgotten.
I mean, being living in the UK, you might get. We had Starburst or Skittles.
Oh, I think Starburst. Yeah, yeah. Not keen on it, really. Prefer chocolate.
And then we had the whole classic pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
Yes, love it.
Oh, that's a firm yes.
My youngest hates it, so I have to pick it all up and eat it when we have that.
And what sort of books are your children into at the minute? Are they big readers? Do you read as a family?
Yeah.
And stuff like that?
I've been like getting them a massive load of books from the library, like since they were little babies, and trying to. I think with boys, sometimes they turn against books. They're not as big readers as some girls are, but both mine love books. We love reading picture books still, and then talking about it. And there's so many amazing kids books out there. Yeah.
Have you got any favorite kids books, or have they got any favorites?
We love books about rescue animals and rescue pets. And that sort of thing, or amazing animals. My eldest just likes things with numbers like Guinness World Records and those kind of things. Yeah.
We're constantly reading Snail and the Whale and things of that
nature.
Yeah.
They
Julia
love
Donaldson.
Yeah.
Would you ever be tempted to dip into either children's fiction or young adult fiction, maybe further down the line, or?
I really like reading some young adult fiction. There's some awesome young adult thrillers that I've read. They're often like really fast-paced, really readable. It's just super fun reads. So possibly that. I've never tried to write a kid's book. I think more like if my kids thought they would have a go at writing them, and I might see if I could help them. That would be really fun.
I mean, the illustrations make children's books so much better, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, the stories are good, but then you get fantastic illustrations. So there's two parts to writing a children's book. You know,
I've heard the publishers usually have illustrators they want to use. So as a writer, you just would often submit the words. They might not even want you to submit the illustrations. They would sort of take care of that bit, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
So with Shiver going to the screen, have you been approached to maybe get involved in the writing of that, or is it completely?
Yes. So it's written into the contract that I would like be a consultant, and I think I would possibly be mainly focusing on the snowboarding, the technical aspects, because there'd be so much like language or things you'd have to get right that if someone wasn't familiar with that world, like it would be hard. But I've got no experience at all in screenwriting, so it's quite a new area for me.
That'd be a very exciting process, so I imagine.
It would be, yeah. Totally, yeah.
So when can we look out for, obviously Shiver's out now and you can get that and it looks fantastic, and I think that is going to go on my shelf. It's going to have to go on my shelf. But when can we expect book 2? How long is that going to be?
I hope sometime in 2022. Yeah, if I can just get it finished next year.
Amazing. And we will leave links to the website like we mentioned, and please do go and check those blogs out, and they are fantastic, and support the authors that support the show. So we're going to wrap up now, but ALLIE, thank you so much for joining us and telling your story, and we wish you all the best for Shiver. It looks like it's going to be a fantastic hit, so well done, and good luck for the future of your writing.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I had so much fun. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.